Hello and welcome to today's lesson from the GCSE PE portal. Today we're going to be looking at the structure of the heart. What I'm going to start by doing is drawing a grid. Whenever you need to be thinking of or labelling the heart or talking about the vessels which attach to the heart, always start with a grid. It's the simplest way to denote or draw the heart and its chambers. Because there are 4 chambers inside the heart. Before we get to there, what we're going to talk about is the sides. Because when analysing the heart, quite often students make the mistake of looking at what they think to be the right hand side and they get it the wrong way round. Always talk about the heart, or anything in the body for that matter, from your own perspective. So for me, my right hand side is here. Therefore, when talking about the heart, I would label the right hand side as my right hand side. Whenever you're analysing something in front of you or someone in front of you, always label the right and left from their perspective, not yours. So with that in mind, the right hand side would be over here and the left hand side would be over there. So we've got the right hand side and the left hand side. We'll come to the type of blood that each side deals with in a moment, but first we're going to do the different chambers. And we have 2 different types of chambers. We have the atria, or is the plural, or atrium is the singular, and the ventricles, or ventricle for singular. So atrium and ventricle. Now the way I remember this is, if we look at the first letters, the A and the V, they look like arrows. We've got the A and we've got the V. So whenever we're labelling the heart and we're trying to put the atria onto the diagram, we can look at these and we realise that the atrium go at the top. So what we would do is divide this grid in half, and we would have the right hand side atria and the left hand side, the right hand side atrium and the left hand side atrium, because we know that the arrow from the A points to the top half of the heart, which means the V is a downward arrow, so we know that the ventricles are on the bottom, so we can label that the RV and the LV. And that's that. That's how you label a very simple diagram of the heart. We've got a few more things to add on to that and then we're done. So, we've got the heart, we've got the 4 chambers, we know that the atria are always on top, we know the ventricles are always on the bottom, we know the right hand side is always from your perspective as well as the left. What we also have in the heart is a thick middle. It's very important that the blood from the right hand side and the left hand side doesn't mix. Because on the right hand side, what we have, right in the blue here, we've got deoxygenated blood flowing through. This is the blood that's just returned from around the body, from the working muscles and organs and living tissue, which has been consuming the oxygen, depositing carbon dioxide, and then getting it back to the heart so we can pump it up to the lungs to get a fresh batch of gases or oxygen and get the CO2 out. So we've got deoxygenated blood on the right hand side. Whereas on the left hand side, we've got blood that's just returned fresh from the lungs. It's packed full of oxygen. We've just got rid of all the carbon dioxide inside of it, and this is good oxygenated blood, nutrient rich, or it's about to become nutrient rich, as it flows around the body to the working muscles, living tissue and the organs. So we don't want these 2 to mix, otherwise we've got some sort of semi-diluted mixture of the same sort of blood getting pumped around everywhere. That's not good. So what we have in the middle is something called the septum. And the way I remember this is that the septum separates, so sep for separates, the 2 halves of the heart, the right hand side and the left hand side. So to recap so far, we've got the right side, the left side from your perspective. We've got the atrium and the ventricle, or the atria and the ventricles. The A and the V form arrows, so we know that the atria are always on top and the ventricles are always on the bottom. We've got deoxygenated blood returning from the working body to the right hand side, and we've got oxygenated blood returning from the lungs about to get pumped to the rest of the body on the left hand side. Now we just need the blood vessels. And what we have are 4, because we have 4 chambers. And we'll start from the blood returning back to the heart. So we need a blue one because it's going to be deoxygenated. And it always goes A first. Think about this. The A comes first in the alphabet. Therefore, whenever blood returns to the heart, it goes first into the atrium. So we have a blood vessel delivering deoxygenated blood back to the right atrium. The blood vessel that does that is the Vena Cava. Let's do that V again. The Vena Cava. That takes deoxygenated blood into the right atrium. The right atrium passes this into the, or down, think about the V, down into the right ventricle. Blood then leaves this vessel up towards the lung. Because it's moving away from the because the blood is now moving away from the heart, A for away, we know it's going to be an artery. And because this blood is entering what's called the pulmonary circuit, which links the heart and the lungs back down to the heart, we create the vessel, or the name for the vessel, the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery. The artery that carries deoxygenated blood away from the heart into the pulmonary circuit that connects the heart to the lungs. Blood goes to the lungs, it picks up oxygen, it drops off CO2 via gaseous exchange. Now it needs to come back to the heart to pick up some new pressure to then flow around the rest of the body nice and quickly. So, which chamber is it going to come back into? A comes first in the alphabet, so it's going to come back to the left atrium first. Oh, I've got a red pen because we're now oxygenated. There we go. Because this is the vessel from the pulmonary circuit, we know it's going to start with pulmonary. Because it's carrying blood into the heart, it's going to be a vein. Remember the spelling of vein, V-E-I-N, I-N, in. It carries blood into the heart. So we've got the pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein. That's carrying oxygenated blood back into the heart, or more specifically, into the left atrium, because A comes first in the alphabet. Blood then moves down, remember the V or the arrow, it moves down into the ventricle, the left ventricle, before leaving again to serve the working body and the muscles via another artery, because it's carrying blood away from the heart, and this one is called the aorta. And that is that. So quickly to recap, for the right hand side and the left hand side from your perspective. We've got the atria and the ventricles, which make the arrows because of the A and the V. So the atria are always on top, ventricles are always on the bottom. We've got deoxygenated on the right hand side, oxygenated blood on the left hand side, with the septum that makes sure that neither of those two blood mixtures ever mix. We've got 4 main blood vessels which carry blood into and out of the heart. The one that brings blood back is the Vena Cava, it's a vein. Atria, down to the ventricle, the blood then leaves into the pulmonary circuit via the pulmonary artery. Oxygenation happens up the lungs, or gaseous exchange happens up the lungs, and then comes back in the second half of the pulmonary circuit via the pulmonary vein into the left atrium, because A comes first in the alphabet. It then drops down into the ventricle, the left ventricle, before leaving the aorta to service the body with oxygenated blood. And that is the structure of the heart. I hope you found that useful, and I hope to see you again soon.